name who worked behind the scenes at KTIB in the mid-1970s was Kathy Terracina. Let's hear how working on Green Street could be dangerous at times. Kathy Terracina, how are you today?
I'm just fine. Thanks so much for having me here today, William. It's such a pleasure as always.
Well, let's start from the beginning. Are you from here originally?
From Shreveport, born and raised there. Always considered myself, and my family did also, a Thibodeauian. My husband and I moved right outside of the city limits about 9 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Now, was KTIB the first job you ever had?
Actually, no. Burger King was. I did a stint there while I was in college, and that was quite interesting.
So how do you jump from the big time in fast food to over here at KTIB?
Well, it was, I don't know, stroke of luck, I suppose. There was an ad. There was an opening for a secretary / receptionist / commercial logger. What is that called? Traffic. And I applied for the job interviews and landed it.
All right. And what year was that, may I ask?
75.
Okay. Now, you come here, and of course, by then KTIB had been on the air for well over 20 years, had been in this building, I believe, since 67 or 68. And, there's a lot of established names here that really made this company good, but there's one name I need to talk about who did dialogue here for years at KTIB, who I know a person you like very much, Marie Bergeron.
She has been one of my mentors throughout my career. In fact, a lot of the career paths that I've taken, a lot of my work ethic, I attribute to Marie Bergeron. We had everyone who ever worked for her, I truly believe, a relationship that was much like I like to relate to my mom's older sister. She was very loving and very guiding, but yet very stern and expected certain things out of the people who worked with her. And she taught me how to work.
Mm-hmm. Very much so. I'd like to ask about another gentleman who a lot of us knew on the air, but was also a pretty good first-class engineer who you knew, Roy Pugh.
Yeah, Roy was a lot of fun to work with. He actually hired me. He was the station manager at that time. He did the morning show as well as a number of other things. He was a lot of fun to be around. He lightened up the atmosphere around here and was always very complimentary to employees. And also, it was a great team. There was a great team effort. Everybody worked well together at that time, and it was a truly fun time in my life.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about another gentleman who became the owner of the station in 73 and very hands-on owner when he was here in at KHOM, Raymond Sadie.
Well, I have to tell you, I wouldn't have told him this at the time, but I was really glad his home office was at KHOM when I was working here. Not that I didn't like him, but Mr. Sadie had that presence about him that just intimidated me so tremendously. He was never anything but pleasant to me, but I just was very intimidated by him and quite honored to work under him because he did have a reputation. Even though I knew very little about the radio business when I got into him, his reputation, of course, preceded him.
Mm-hmm. Let's ask about another gentleman who a lot of us knew from Weekends and all of his Cajun music, and one heck of a personality, Leroy Martin.
Leroy, I remember that so very well. In fact, as a young child growing up, every Saturday morning, we all woke up in the family to the Cajun music on Saturday mornings. My parents listened to it faithfully. And yes, I did get to know him quite a lot better during my term here, but through the years we have stayed in contact, and he's a great guy,
Now, before I go any further, because I know you worked with a lot of people, and and I know you've worked with a lot of people since then. Is there anybody here that I haven't mentioned from KTIB?
Gee, there were so many personalities. There were lots of radio personalities that came through at the time. And 30 years ago almost, it's hard to remember the names and faces I won't forget. But what I remember most of all being here, having all of the political candidates come through. And for a 19, 20-year-old person, that was quite impressionable to be where the action was, if you will.
Right. Now, speaking of politics and elections, the KTIB's been covering it basically from day one. Every year we've had a governor's election or a mayor's election or a parish president election. Well, since we've gone to the parish president format, tell everybody how you almost died in the line of duty trying to get election results.
Oh my goodness, it's probably one of my most embarrassing moments, but I'll just go ahead and reveal all to everyone who's listening. In the days in the 70s when I worked here, there were no such thing as cell phones. There were no computers. In fact, I was so impressed when I was hired, I got to operate the telefax machine. It was this new technological masterpiece. Anyway, on election night, we had to run numbers from the courthouse. We volunteered to work. We would run over to the courthouse, wait for the numbers to be calculated. They'd be given to us on a sheet of paper. We'd run them back to the station to whoever was on the air, and the announcements were made. People were tuning into their radios because the numbers were coming in faster by radio than they were by television. And it was a big event in the 70s. Lots of people, I can't tell you, probably hundreds, would gather around the courthouse waiting to hear those numbers. Well, I was sent out on an assignment. It was my turn to go out and get the numbers, and I ran across the street just as proud as I could be because I considered that to be a very important job. Ran out of the courthouse in the midst of these hundreds of people, lost my footing, fell down the courthouse steps. From the first step to the last, both heels of my shoes fell off. I was so embarrassed. I picked up my shoes off of my feet, ran barefoot across back to the station to turn in the numbers diligently.
So I guess no matter what, even as a volunteer at the station, you still had to go through pain and injury to get the news in.
Anything to get the job done.
Okay. Well, how long did you stay here at KTIB?
Just a couple of years. I married very young and expected my first child and was quite ill, so I stayed home to take care of myself for a while. In those days, married expectant women weren't common in the workplace, so I stayed home until after he was born.
Okay. Where did you go to work from there?
I tried my hand in the medical profession for a while. I was hired by Terrebonne General Medical Center as an EKG technician and soon realized that I was not cut out for the medical field. After that, I went to work for ARA Offshore Catering Services as an executive secretary, which I enjoyed very much. However, they relocated to Lafayette, and I couldn't relocate my entire family. Then I went to work for St. Bridget Church for about 10 years. I was the office administrator, secretary, gopher, pretty much like my job is now. Then after that, I went to work at Orton Bank, and I worked in the marketing department and worked there for a number of years. Okay,
and you end up now with the Chamber of Commerce. How long have you been there?
Almost 6 years already, and it's been very rewarding, and every job that I have had has helped me where I am now.
All right.
I couldn't have done what I'm doing today if I hadn't had all of those experiences.
Mm-hmm. So I take it, besides being an employee here at KTIB, I guess listening to the station all your life, before, during, and after your tenure, must have been, it must feel good to still have community-oriented radio still a viable part of the region.
It is tremendous, and from the Chamber of Commerce point of view, it's such a valuable service. As you know, our organization is all about community service, business service, and there are not many small radio stations that are so committed to the communities as KTIB is, and it is greatly appreciated.
I take it also, while I'm thinking about it, because I think you were on the radio, another outlet ironically, talking about this, it must have been a big deal the 3 years we had Saints Training Camp here in terms of promoting the area.
It certainly was. It was a privilege. It was an honor. It was good for the area. As you well know, we got national media attention. Little small town, 15,000 residents, Thibodaux, Louisiana. It was a great opportunity for us. It was a good partnership with the Saints, of course, from the business community side of view. If we were disappointed when they decided not to return, but are grateful that we had the opportunity.
All righty. Well, before we go, is there anything you'd like to say to all our listeners?
I'd just like to say KTIB is a great station. We appreciate all that you do for the community and hope that we can have this relationship for many, many more years. Happy anniversary and Merry Christmas.
Kathy Terracina, part of a terrific support team that's the backbone of KTIB